Hey, I guess you've probably been wondering where I've been. Well, the answer is working my tail off. I was not working for 11 months, which is when I started this podcast, and I started working recently back in construction again, and it kind of kicked my butt for a little while. So hopefully I've got a schedule figured out, and I'll be able to just start doing interviews again. But I wanted to make sure to get Dov's interview up before DKE-CON Summer Edition comes out. That should be here. So it'll be coming up July 23rd through 25th. I didn't want you guys to miss out on that, even though I missed out on getting this out before his March DKE-CON. But it's a good interview. Lets you know how to bag and board your figures you've made, and it's insight on the background of the industry also. So check out Dov. Those things, some audio levels.
You really need to do that?
Trying to do this professional. Yeah, okay.
Then you shouldn't have had me on the show.
Are you kidding? You're the behind man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get this started here.
The behind.
How the heck are you, sir?
Doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How's California weather doing right now?
California is weird right now, and California has been getting weirder, and I think it's going to get even weirder. Now, it was 40 degrees one night, 38 degrees like a week ago, and today it's 70, and then next week it could be 112.
Yeah, the whole world's a little askew right now.
Indeed.
And then, so you're close. You're where? You're close to LA or closer to San Francisco?
We're closer to LA.
Closer to
live in Hollywood, and the warehouse where I'm at right now is in Pacoima, which is just a little bit north of North Hollywood. If people ask, I just say North Hollywood because if you say Pacoima, they're like, "What?" Sounds like foreign country.
Are you planning on making that a usable store once COVID nonsense is all done and over with, or?
No, I've never wanted to be a retailer. I'm actually surprised. We had a well, to go back to the beginning, we started out doing vintage toys and collectibles. That's where it all started. And that morphed into being a designer toy distributor and representing, 500 companies and having staff in huge warehouse. In 2016, I sold that to Dispersed. You can check them out at dispersed.com. That's with a T. And then I thought I would be, I don't know, semi-retired. I thought that because we had our first son, and then my wife was like, well, if you keep working 60 hours a week, like, you're going to miss everything. And we couldn't have a second kid if I would see him in the morning and come home after he's asleep. Like, what? Yeah. Didn't make sense. And so that's why I sold the company and then started doing conventions. So I thought, like, I'd never I never wanted to be a retailer. Wholesale was great. You deal with stores, they buy in bulk, not dealing with the end consumer. That was horrifying to me, because I know myself, and it's like it's $2 and someone says, well, okay, $1, I just want to get rid of it. So we still do a little vintage toys, but if you go to DKE-Toys.com right now and click on the store link, what you see are the artist-made resin action figures that we carry. And I don't think that, no. The answer to the question is no. There will never be a store. There's not enough demand, even in a city in LA,
right,
to justify a permanent space for this small niche and then someone to staff it full time. So right now we're committed to 3 conventions a year. This whole pandemic has taught us that we can do our own convention.
Yeah.
So this coming March is DKE-CON, and it will always be virtual, even when the Earth stops melting. And then we'll do San Diego and DesignerCon in July and November.
Nice.
And if they're virtual, they're virtual, and if they're live, they're live. And I have now a retailer at I do the convention circuit. It's weird.
Well, we know you do much more than that, but we'll get into that in a minute. Let's actually rewind it a little bit more then. What started you in the toy world?
I think it's the same as everybody else. You had toys as a kid, or you didn't have enough toys as a kid, or one of those variations. And I collected toys. I collected Star Wars when I was a kid, but didn't have a lot of it. When I was 18, I started buying a lot of the stuff back.
Oh, okay.
And
that would have been, I'm guessing, close to the dead zone of Star Wars, or
it was in the dead zone.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's see. So that's about 1991.
Yeah.
I was 18. I was born in 73. So yeah, completely dead. Just, and that was the coolest, because you could get everything affordably. And how I got into the business is another whole story. How I wandered, into a store and met this guy and bought a warehouse full of stuff. And, that's a crazy story unto itself. But, it just started, you keep one for yourself, and, you sell everything else, and then you start upgrading. And, eventually I had a converted garage at, my mom's house into like the Star Wars room with Star Wars books and comics and wrapping paper and posters and umbrellas and talking alarm clocks and shampoo bottles. And then it sort of, I don't know, I guess it was in like 93 or so. It happened, I guess, rather quickly. 93, 94, I bought my first Star Wars painting.
Oh, okay.
And once that happened, and I realized here's this piece of art that's on the wall, it made the plastic stuff on the shelf seem irrelevant.
Yeah, it kind of does put a different place on it. That's for sure.
And so then a lot of selling ensued, getting rid of all of this stuff and focusing. And about 1997, I sold my vintage collection, my vintage carded collection, for about double book at the time.
That's
and
pretty
good. I put a down payment on a house.
Nice.
And that, and then life changed there. I now had a house payment.
Right.
And collecting art changed for me. I used to be able to just buy whatever I wanted. Well, that's $5,000. Sure. You get on the phone, you just start selling this, and this. Right. And it's super easy to do. And then it got hard.
Yeah. I can see that.
So the resin toy thing, I guess I first saw the Sucklord's work in 2004.
Yeah.
It was when I first met him. I started selling figures for him, the Gay Empire and the Sucklord 66. And that just spoke to me. It took like the art that I was a fan of,
right,
and it took the action figure and it brought them together. And it took a while to go through the distribution and all of the other things that I was doing to be able to settle back down to this that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
And I get to sell stuff to people who are equally as passionate, and we all sort of share something in common, like the artists and the fans and all the surrounding the people in the community. It's a really small like niche of a niche.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to explain to people what I do. Like, so what do you do? It's like go somewhere where it's like, before pandemic, you'd go somewhere where the kids and, there's other dads and moms like, well, what do you do? And it's like, this guy is an actor and this guy is a accountant and this guy, whatever, runs a karate studio, whatever he does. Right. Like, and it's like, what do you do? It's like, well, I mean, I guess I used to sell I used to be a distributor. Now I do conventions. I guess I sell toys. They're like, you sell toys? Like, what kind of toys? And it's like, I can kind of be whatever I want,
Right.
depending on who I'm talking to. I always say, like, oh, I'm the CEO and president of my company. Like, I can say that. It's like, oh, I'm the janitor too. Like, I cleaned the toilet the other day. Like, it's like you can be whatever you want. So it's, and people just look at you funny, like say, oh, I sell toys. They just think, oh, this guy must be a child molester or something. So.
Well, the thing is, like, because on top of it, you don't sell mainstream toys. You don't sell, I mean, when people say art toys, I think a lot more people think like the kid robot direction than the niche that is the resin custom figure world. Not that they don't have some influence in it, but it's not, they're not exactly tied to each other.
Well, I mean, that's what I used to do.
Yeah.
So, Kid Robot and all of those the larger companies that made their own stuff distributed their own stuff.
Right.
And then every other company that didn't want to do it themselves did it through us.
Gotcha.
And so there were some resin figures in that.
Right.
But not a lot. Most were vinyl toys. And it really sort of came together, at San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Because even though making vinyl toys was a very democratizing process for toy makers.
Right.
That an individual for a relatively small amount of money, instead of hundreds of thousands of dollars, for 5 or 10 could go to China and make their own run of toys. Still not something everyone can do.
Yeah.
Right. Because that is a lot of money, is an investment. And you kind of have to hit the sweet spot is somewhere around 500 to 1,000 toys between all colorways to really get your price down to something that is somewhat workable.
So you're talking between like $5,000, $10,000 kind of buy-in?
Somewhere around there, sometimes 10 or 20. Just depends what you're doing, how complicated, and smaller toys are a worse return than larger toys. So if you make a smaller toy, you have to make tens of thousands, where if you're making a bigger toy that can retail for 50 or 100, just the price gets up there very quickly. And in order to do San Diego Comic-Con, we would set up these huge booths, these cases that were enormous amounts of money to rent, and show all of the new products that we were going to have.
Because that's gotten cheaper in the last 10 years.
Right. So it wasn't a way to make money. It was just a promotional expense. And everyone wanted their stuff on display at
San Diego
Comic-Con. And so companies would make us exclusives to sell. And it got very hard to make an exclusive for us that wasn't a second colorway of something that already existed.
Right.
And to get something new and unique, it just got to the point where there was no reason for the company to give it to us. Sometimes in a promotional, angle, it was good, but they could really just release it themselves and make all the money.
Right.
And so the resin toys just started creeping in.
Okay.
And I forgot what year was it. 2013. I was pushing the Sucklord, make me something, and he's like, he was busy. And then I threw some extra money at him. He's like, okay, and he sort of phoned it in, and it didn't do that well. And then for some reason, like everyone else just, I don't know, I think it was 2014 where everything just kind of clicked.
Okay.
Where we had 3 or 4 vinyl toys, but it was like 8 or 10 or 12 resin figures. And on Wednesday night of the show, everything sold out.
Wow.
And the vinyl toys are still sitting there. But there was a line. There was a frenzy. I didn't understand it. Like people saw something happening that I didn't see in front of me. And then I think the next year, maybe there was one vinyl toy. And then the year after, it's like, screw that. No more vinyl toys. Like you just can't make me anything special enough at a cheap enough price to make it worthwhile. Like, and it's just too much of a risk. And then San Diego just became the launch point. Like everyone wanted their toy at San Diego, and then before you know it, our booth looked like an art gallery.
Awesome.
I'm sitting at these tables now, but if you can see, it's just we have rolls of this black cloth see if can't see it here, but
Don't fall off the chair there. Oh yeah, yeah.
this, right? And we cover them, and
Yeah.
we have the stands, and it's just people. They walk up to the booth. As far as outreach, like they walk up to the booth, they don't know what's going on,
Right.
and they're like, "What is this?" And then I have to, me or
Yeah.
one of the people at the booth, Ian, who's sitting right here. If you hear him laughing, that's Ian laughing. He's we have to explain to people like, oh, these are handmade.
Right.
They're like, why are they $50? It looks like it should be $10. It's like someone hand painted that. They're
Right.
like, oh,
Right. Yeah,
So-
they have to break that, like, oh, this is an actual art piece as opposed to just a
Mhm.
I don't know, a gumball machine toy or something like that.
Right. And there's usually a little sign that has the price, and it
Yeah.
says signed limited edition of 20. And,
Right.
they don't read it. They just go, what is this?
Yeah.
And then we say, see right there, it says there's only 20 of these in the world. And they're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so from that, I've interviewed now Magoob Toys. I've interviewed Barbarian Rage. I just interviewed pretty much my wall back here, Acquired Taste, and so it's all guys that have sung your praises for how much you've helped them out in different ways, and got them to where they are with their toy making and stuff too.
I don't know if I really got any of them
Well,
to where they are.
No, but I mean, as far as it definitely helped with their reach. They couldn't have reached as many people, they feel, as if they didn't, have you as a platform to work off of to a degree.
Maybe they would have gotten there eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason people sell stuff with us at shows is not to make money. People who make this stuff by hand, their prices are already dismally cheap for the time.
Yeah.
And then to cut us in on it, they're garbage wages. It's terrible. But what we can offer them is the promotion.
Yeah.
We do write press releases. We do have a press list. We do have a social media presence. And so someone who's never, done anything before, if they have a good idea, they come to us, like, give everyone the same spiel pretty much, like, this is how it works. Kind of what we're looking for. It can't be, there's like a level of infringement that is not okay.
Right.
I always talk to people about like the spectrum. There's like, on one side, there's like the Dano Browns and Retro Gimmick and Readful Things, the guys who are making very taking very specific characters from pop culture, from movies, and making their art is creating a 3 3/4 inch
right
version of that. And it has, so if it's Steve Martin from The Jerk, it's got a Jerk logo, the photo of Steve Martin, and it's Steve Martin as an action figure. And that's fine for Dano Brown. That's great. He gets good money for his stuff, and he only makes 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And no one's gonna screw with him for that. It's an original piece of art as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But once you get into the multiple original kind of category, you're making 20 or 30, 40, 50, and you're using the company's logo, I don't, for my purposes, my comfortability, is that a word?
Sure.
For me to be comfortable, and I always, the joke, I always say, like, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving legal advice, but I have to do what's comfortable for me. Is we're looking for work that is transformative.
Right.
So when the artist has taken something from their personality or making a comment, a lot of them end up being mashups.
Yeah.
Which get criticized by people like the Suck Lord. He's like, I could have done that. That's 1 + 1 = 2.
Right.
Like, I want 1 + 1 = 3. It's like, okay, it's like, and that's his thing, and he does it well.
Right.
And he's in a place where he can criticize, but we also cater to a wider variety of people, right? It's not, when this all started, like Killer Bootlegs and all these other people started making toys, he started to get a little worried, like, other people they're copying me, right? And it's like, but now if you look at the scene, I mean, it's very nuanced, like, and there's a lot of different tastes.
Yeah.
There's some people that they're going for cheap gags, and other people are going for political commentary, and other people are just creating their own worlds and their own characters. And so I'm trying to have a little something for everyone, especially being at a convention.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the number of women buying stuff from us is like, that's insane.
Yeah.
Right. It's not quite half, but it's close,
Yeah.
at a convention. And so, but not half of the people making toys are women.
Yeah. That's,
Right.
I've been scouring,
So,
trust me.
yeah. So, when a woman approaches me and says, hey, and not only when a woman approaches, it's not necessarily about whether they're a man or a woman. It's whether they are making something that appeals to women,
Mm-hmm.
which men can obviously do also.
Right.
But that it's not always. And this is based on a traditional boys' toy, so it is skewed in that
Sure.
way. And there's plenty of women who are, adept at making stuff with boys' toys. But I'm always looking for that little girly edge.
Yeah.
Right. The thing that really gets the woman walking by go, oh, look at that,
Yeah.
that's amazing, and picks it up. And because I don't know, it seems almost, well, I always describe like how I collect art and how my wife collects art.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm like a dude, like this is my checklist, I need this guy represented and I need this represented, and this seems like a good thing, and she's the opposite. She looks at something, it makes her cry, like, oh, I have to have that. Right. That's not me, so that's the difference between, that's not the difference between all men and women, but that's the difference between how we, individually operate. And so trying to, just trying to represent properly, and it's hard. So.
I can see that. And that's, I think, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, it's good that people are making money, but like we'll just say the Kid Robot and stuff like that, a lot of their stuff is more cutesy and, cutesy versions. Whereas I think a lot of the stuff the guys makes are more like bastardizations of, as opposed to like the cutesy version of.
Right. True. I mean, Kid Robot's changed a lot. I mean, they started out as a designer toy company, and since they've been bought by NECA, I mean, they're doing mostly licensed products and then still doing some art toys because it's cool. But if you look what they're putting out, it's like Back to the Future plush and
right.
Simpsons toys, and, but still with an edge to it. But you get the idea.
Yeah. So as far as for finding people, do you actively seek out people, or does it mostly just people that have come to you?
It's mostly people coming to me. It's getting to the point where people are getting in touch all the time, and most new people are we're kind of like a stepping stone for people. Like the Sucklord, like he'll make an exclusive for us every once in a while, but he doesn't need to. He doesn't need us. He can sell his stuff full price. We do other stuff with him, like he designed the bags that we give away, or we made like the Suckle figures, or we made stickers, or talking plush doll, or so if there's something that needs to be produced, buttons, patches, like we've made psychedelic stuff. But as far as like actual figures that he produces, he just puts it up online himself. He can make all the money, doesn't need us. If he's in the mood for it, like he feels like it benefits him, he'll do it. So as far as approaching people, most of the people in the scene know us. If they've already kind of been, if they're already a big name before we started, or have reached some level of notoriety on their own, they kind of don't need us. There's a few people like that in other countries that I don't have a rapport with. I have some of their pieces in my collection, but no, I don't know. I guess I seem like a novelty to them.
Gotcha.
For people starting out, they're usually coming to us like to buy blisters, because we manufacture blisters. And sell them for half of what everyone else sells, just to help people out. So and then it's funny because they kind of work up the confidence, and they're like, hey, I've been buying your blisters, what do I have to do to get us exclusive? I'm like, here's my number, you have to call me.
Oh, trust me, I got gears going in the back of my head right now too, so I understand.
So it's not hard. I talk to people all the time. That's what I do. Some stranger called me today, said, I heard you have blisters. Sent him the link, gave me his address. I'm sending him a sample pack. And he's like, how do I print cards? I told him how he can print cards. And then he's like, well, I want my logo to be, silver. How do I do that? And I'm like, that's a spot color, like CMYK printing. You can't do that. You could hand do it. And then I just thought about it. I was like, oh, you could inexpensively. He described it to me. I said, you don't want silver. You're describing chrome.
Right.
He's like, yes. I'm like, oh, you can go to Sticker App or a sticker place, print a chrome sticker, and you can put the sticker on the card yourself.
Yep.
And he's like, that's amazing. It's like, he's just like epiphany. And I told him, just make the logo like 1/4 inch bigger on all sides, because you're going to have to put that on, and you don't want to have, you're going to mess up your card if you get it just wrong. So, those kind of things. It's those little tips. And that's what I've actually prepared here, to all this junk around me to talk about, because figure this is TESTPLUG. Why not talk about, most people in most of the interviews, I always talk about the same stuff anyway. So I figured, why not talk about something new and interesting that actually information people could use.
Awesome. Well, might as well get into it. We know enough about Dov now. We can get into
So what should we talk about? Let's talk about blisters first.
Okay.
So we make blisters. Used to make them in China and have them shipped over here, but I found some place in the United States that makes them, and they're much cleaner. Most of the basic blisters are 50 cents each.
Okay.
And they're mostly
Star Wars size,
structured around 3 3/4 inch. So you can see this is the
Gotcha.
standard.
Yeah.
So this is what we call our number 2. The number 1 is slightly taller for Chewbacca's and Darth Vader's and the like. And then there's the smaller one for
Yoda's and your Ewoks.
Exactly. They're all 50 cents each.
Yeah.
And we don't ever put the foot on it.
Oh, okay.
And so we're doing very generic blisters, trying to accommodate as many, as many ideas that are out there as possible, rather than to make us a figure for a blister for someone specific. There is another guy out there named Empire Blisters, who also makes fantastic blisters. They're a little more expensive. They're about $1 each, but his all have the foot.
Right.
And what he's trying to do is something different, which is fascinating. He is trying to replicate all of the actual Kenner blisters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because there's like 5 different sizes, I think, with the Kenner ones.
There's hundreds, because there's some that
you have
some that have the coin.
Yeah,
and some,
that's right. I was thinking about that. Yeah.
There's the Power Droid and the Jawa and the R2D2 and the R2D2 with the big thing and the small thing and the IG-88. They're all there's lots of them, not hundreds, but there's probably dozens and dozens.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about the special ones, which are quite a few actually.
Because they have the luxury of just making the blister specifically for that figure.
Right.
It's not a lot of investment. But there's 3 types of blisters on the market. And we just call this a regular blister or bubble. There's something called a clamshell.
Right.
And these are usually repurposed from some industrial use, like this had screws in it or cell phone parts or something. And you'll see a lot of artists chopping this off the top part here.
Yeah.
A lot of the ones that are made for action figures don't have a lot of flat area on the back to glue. They only have a couple spots, because this has to be recessed for the blister to go to go in. One of my future goals is to make a clamshell of the standard 3 3/4.
Oh, okay.
Because there are people who spend a lot of time.
I have it's actually Peter Mayhew with his helmet off, so it's a Chewbacca, and it's an openable case.
Right. And the openable case has some other benefits we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
And the last one is one that some people almost never use, and that's a slide blister.
Okay.
And it has these recessed grooves where a card goes in there and they would staple it.
Yep.
There are people out there that make this stuff. We used these for Skinner hand painted some Masters of the Universe figures 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And this was the only thing that we could find at the time to make, to use Masters of the Universe figures. So the issue with all these blisters is that if you look at this Sucklord figure here, he's shaking inside. Right. And resin figures have a problem breaking because no matter how well you pack this, you have a foot of, whatever packing material, foam all around it. It doesn't matter. As the box moves,
it shakes.
This is moving. So if you have something delicate, or if you've made something where the head comes off, or people who also magnet joints or articulate, then they're trying to source something like this. And then what it allows them to do is to wrap the figure.
Oh, yeah.
Put it inside, and then the customer opens it, unwraps, puts it back in, and can display it.
Right.
And then if you ship it again, you wrap it and close it back up.
It also beats that dilemma I have I'm a pretty much open package guy. That's pretty much how I run for all my collecting.
Oof.
But for this world, it's hard because I want to play with that. I want to check it out closer, and it's stuck in there.
Devastating. Yeah. We had a problem with a Ron English toy. So one of the ways around it is that you can actually glue the figure to the card back. That's another option. So we did that with a Ron English McSupersize figure. You can probably see it right up there. It's the Ronald McDonald. It's based on a Gamorrean guard body, and they just weren't glued enough, or it was the wrong glue. I don't know, whatever happened, they were just all popping off. And so when I emailed the people that we had shipped to, and I told them to cut up their card, send me back the figure and a photo of the number, and we would, repaint it and repackage it for them. And I had a point to this story. So they were falling off, and I don't know. Are we editing?
We can do some of that.
What's the point of this story?
You couldn't get to them, or you couldn't. It was damaging the figure.
We were gluing the figure. I don't know. I feel like an idiot. See, they call me like the king of tangents because I just go off tangent and tangent and tangent. You ask me a question, and it's like I can answer for like 45 minutes, and then I forgot what the original question was.
Maybe I should be a better interviewer and ask you better questions. I don't know.
Yeah. I think you're doing just fine. Oh, okay. Here's a story. So I emailed all the people about the Ron English figure, and one of the guys, I said, hey, tell me what number you have, and I will replace it for you. And he's like, oh, I don't know. I opened it and I tossed the package away, and I just have the figure sitting on my shelf. I'm like, but the package was signed by Ron English, and it was numbered out of 100. Nerd is going, this was signed by Ron English. What are you doing? It's like, and he's like, no, I just enjoy it, like the figure. Yeah. I'm like, but that was $100, and you just took it, and and he's like, so there's that story. So this is a little bigger one. We call this the Jumbo.
Right.
And this fits a lot of like smaller Simpsons figures, but it's really designed, for like the Rancor Keeper, Gamorrean Guard kind of size figures. And then finally, it just got too difficult. These are more expensive. These are $2 each.
Yeah.
And this is more turtle size, and this is more He-Man size.
Yeah.
And people use them on the side for multiple packs.
Oh yeah.
And the reason they're so expensive is because the rest of these blisters are 15 mil.
Oh,
and 15 mil plastic, it's not going to crush it this size.
Right.
But you can imagine a sheet of plastic when you're making something
to stretch
deeper,
it to that size. Yeah.
It has to stretch. Someone had to explain this to me. It's like, why do these suck so bad? And you just put your finger on it, and the whole thing crunches. And if you're selling, consumer electronic parts at Best Buy, like nobody cares.
Right.
you're selling a figure for $100. People are
No, that's a real
pissed.
thing. Yeah, that's a real thing.
So these had to make special molds, and these have to be run in a proprietary kind of like 20 mil run.
Right.
And that's why. And I'm not going to say they're crush proof, but
it's definitely denser.
And so, but again, people are having trouble with this because if you have a He-Man size figure here,
right,
it's shaking all around.
Yeah.
And so one option is people like to glue the top only.
Oh, okay.
And so it flips up.
Gotcha.
It's a little tricky because sometimes it could rip the card.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot of people, artists like Skip Bro, they all come with a little note. Say, be careful because your figure could fall out and break.
Right.
The other option is to glue the figure to the backing card.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really work for someone like you who wants to open the figure.
Yeah.
Because it's going to ruin the paint on the back.
Yeah.
And then the other option is to actually put a wire in there.
Yeah.
But also very difficult because if you have a cardboard backer and if you have two holes and you put the wire in and you start tightening too much,
then
it starts ripping.
Yeah.
So then you need a little bow tie. If you look at like 90s like Kenner products, like with all this twist tie and stuff, there's always that little bow tie piece in there. So I've had to draw that many times on a piece of paper and say, you need to make this or you're going to ruin it. Yeah. And then we have a lot of just little sizes for accessories.
Oh, okay.
Coins, stuff like that. This one fits like a gonk droid. And then this old one, the one I got from China, was what we used for the Suckles, the little Sucklord muscle figure.
Oh, gotcha.
And this one has been recently retired and replaced by these two. It's a thicker one and a thinner one.
Right.
And a lot of these have come about because there was someone who needed a coin.
Yeah.
And called me and said, hey, I need a coin. It's like, well, I have to order 10,000. It's like, are you willing to put like a couple $100 down?
Yeah.
If you'll do that, I'll buy 10,000 just if you'll spend a few $100.
Right.
Like, just offset my cost a little bit. And then it turns out like every once in a while there's someone's like, oh, you have a coin blister.
Yeah. Nice.
They freak out.
How I mean, you don't have to give exact numbers obviously, but how wide of, because I mean, I basically just know what I've seen as far as on your YouTube spots and stuff like that. How many people are buying from you and making toys from your products, would you say? Like how many sales do you normally do? I'm trying to not ask but ask, you know what I mean?
Okay. I think you're asking a lot of questions there.
Yeah, probably.
In my database, I have probably about 200 artists in the scene.
That's basically what I'm asking, but yeah.
At any given show, we are showing now 30 to 40 new items.
Okay.
Those are the 30 or 40 new exclusives in addition to other odds and ends.
Yeah.
San Diego, so this was the first time we did mail order, was in 2020. It was always convention only with a little mail order, when someone said, hey, can you know, I live in France, if you have an extra one, like, we would do a lot of that after the show in a very informal way. And then San Diego, I think, was about 600 orders.
Oh, wow.
Was it 600 or 800? Ian says 700 orders. And then New York Comic Con dipped a little bit, 5 or 6, and then it's probably stayed the same for about DKE-CON.
Yeah.
And so for 2021, we're not going to do New York anymore in favor of it's just too much. It's like we do all our business between July and November. It's like too much product, too fast.
Yeah.
And so by doing our own DKE-CON virtual show in March, now we have 3 shows a year, 4 months apart. It's better for the artists, it's better for production, better for all that. So,
makes sense.
All right. So when the Sucklord started, he started using tape.
Right.
And he uses 3M half-inch transparent tape, Scotch tape. And that's, he's pretty adept at taping it.
Yeah.
It's not two-sided.
Oh, not.
It's actually just
just taped onto the card. Okay.
it's as janky as can be. It's just tape. And so, when we've had projects with him that we've done, like the Star Bong, the Sepplug 72, stuff that we've produced in greater number for him, we're always using that tape. The glue that we ended up settling on for a long time was this Loctite go-to glue.
Okay.
And Loctite dried not too glossy. It dried clear. As anyone starting out will tell you who has used, I don't know, Crazy Glue.
Yeah.
Crazy Glue does not dry clear. It gets cloudy and shitty really fast. And this was kind of, I will say there's a generation of figures out there that Ian here has glued thousands of figures with this glue. The downside of this glue, well, I'll tell you one more upside of the glue is that if the figure gets damaged, if you can happen to get a razor blade in between, not the glue and the card, but between the glue and the blister, and pop it up, sometimes the whole thing will pop up without ruining the card back.
Nice.
You can make the repair, glue it, no problem. What happened on lighter cards, white background cards, and anything that wasn't too dark, is over time this started to yellow.
Oh, okay.
And so if you look at anything, the first Scott C toys that we put out, they just have kind of a yellow line around them. It makes them look aged, and that's great, but so we started messing around and we just started buying glues.
Oh. And
we looked at all the archival websites, and what we settled on, we tried like 5 or 6 glues, and this is about $5 a jar, and it goes bad.
Yeah.
Eventually it gets to the bottom, and it'll turn yellow in.
Right.
Sometimes I order them from Amazon, and then they'll arrive and they're already yellow. It's like, how long has this been sitting in a warehouse? So we settled on this.
Okay.
It's a PVE glue, which is basically a white glue.
Yeah.
It looks and feels like Elmer's glue. It's called Jade R, and the R is releasable. It means that it's water soluble, so you can use water to loosen it. It says high quality acid-free adhesive, sought after for its long-term stability, which will not yellow or become brittle over time. Suitable for use on leather, paper, fabric, ceramic, stone, some metals and plastics, and many other surfaces. A quick drying adhesive, which can be cleaned up with water when wet, dries strong, clear, and flexible and firm. Dry adhesive can be swelled and released with induction of water for about 15 to 30 seconds. So there is a jade that is not the R, that's not the releasable. And you'd think that a white glue, you tell me like a white glue, that's gonna sound shitty. No, it's fantastic. And not only that, a whole jug of it, that a gallon jug is $100, and that'll probably last for 10,000 figures.
Yeah, easily.
Where this, is 50. It's just the cost went down, the quality went up. And
so do you use just like a squeeze tube to put it on, or a brush, or?
When Ian comes back in the room, I'll grab the thing. Even when he's using this, he's brushing it on.
Oh, okay.
And brushing it on, because a lot of artists they put the glue on the flange of the blister here, and then just go right there, and then it all squeezes out the side, and it's uneven. Yeah. And we found that it turns yellow less, and we have less stuff coming out the sides if you just actually literally paint it on. And then he developed another technique with we used to use water bottles.
Okay.
So it used to be a box of like these little pint like water bottles, and instead he developed this. It has this little beer cap.
Right.
And then when he's carding stuff, and there's just hundreds of things all around the room, and then this is just enough weight.
Oh wow!
To let it cure for 10 or 20 minutes, and then that's all it needs. So
nice. What's the dry time on that glue?
No. Wish Ian was here, but It's not long. I think at 10, 20 minutes and it's set,
Yeah.
you know, for
Well,
good.
it probably soaks into the paper enough, not enough to ruin it, but enough for the adhesion that it actually kind of dries it out a little bit too, probably.
It depends on the surface of also. We noticed that there was a situation where someone had a styrene card.
Oh, okay.
And we were using the jade.
Yeah.
With plastic on plastic.
Right.
Didn't work.
Yeah, because we didn't have anything to pull the water out of it.
But what else? Oh, and then if we're gluing a figure to the card, we're going back to this. Yeah. Because this forms kind of a rubbery,
right.
And if something breaks, you can get it off. Sometimes it'll take the paint with it, and we'll need some touch up. But if we're gluing it to the card, this makes a nice little glob. The go-to Loctite. But if you're repairing a resin figure, then it's always like a crazy glue.
Yeah.
That always, this stuff is too rubbery and doesn't get that. That good seal. That's all we talk about gluing. How about card backs?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So it was the Sucklord who I first watched make card backs, and it drove me fucking nuts because he spent an entire day making 50 card backs.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh my God. Like, he designed it. He printed them, even though it was black and white art on color paper.
Right.
He's using color. He's using color printing.
Right.
Color printing, for some reason, gives him that extra. If he's taking it or is using a color printer or taking it to a color Xerox.
Right. Right.
Even though this is his later work, but his early work was very reminiscent. This is in his style. Yeah. It's just
he wants it to look like a band poster, like a bad band poster or something like that. Yeah.
and it was really just black printing on whatever paper was available.
Right.
Right. And so he bought the cardstock. He spray mounted paper on there. He sliced. He glued the back. He sliced and then cut the corners. I did the count. It was something like 16 cuts per. And I was just like, dude, you could hire someone else to do this. You spent a day of your time. He just,
Right.
And he wasn't even rounding his corners. He was, if you look at a lot of the old figures, they're cut.
Square. Yeah.
They're just, it looks like an octagon almost, like, because they're just cut. So Tom over at Sidekick Labs started making cards for him at one point. And so most card backs on the market are a substrate,
right,
with two pieces of whatever paper or printed matter glued together. And can you hand me the glue? Yes. So this is the little applicator.
Oh, okay.
That he uses.
Yeah.
And what's the curing time on the jade? 15 minutes. And same for Loctite? Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad.
So unless it's cold, right? And even if you look carefully here, you can see finding thick stock is difficult.
Yeah.
And most printers, I'm trying to quote a job now for something that we are going to make in the thousands. And my go-to for, well, I guess there's a hierarchy. If there's not very many things that we make ourselves, but sometimes if I'm working with Ron English or Scott C. or Frank Kozik, I'll make an edition for them. And I'm usually this is a project, Adam and Steve, that we made with Death by Toys.
Yeah.
So I saw this figure that he made a one of a kind of. I was like, let's make a run of that. It's like, oh no, I think the first question was like, can you make me 20 of those as an exclusive? He's like, that's a 2-figure set. Like,
yeah,
that's like 40 figures. That's like, no fucking way.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how about I make them? I'll have someone cast them and someone paint them. You sign them all, and we can make a cheaper version. Instead of $150, you can have a 2-pack for $50, $60.
Right.
And I give him a percentage of it. He's like, oh, that sounds great. So right now we're doing a lot of printing with Got Print.
Okay.
Scottprint.com. And this is technically a postcard.
Okay.
It's under their postcard. It's a 6x9 postcard, and it's called a trifecta, a 38-point trifecta.
Nice.
And is what they call it. And 250 cards run about $180.
That's not bad. That's really not bad at all.
It's not bad if you are making something 50, 60 figures, then it's worth it. Kevin Malone from Chimera Studios made this for Kalaka, and he charges about $3 each.
Right.
And he can do his he's great if you need 20 or 30 pieces. But again, you get 50 or 60 pieces, then I'm going to Got Print. Same thing with the Ron English piece.
Yeah.
So these, but again, it is the same thing. It is 2 pieces of paper glued to a substrate.
Right.
And I do believe you have an option. We always choose the black.
Yeah.
But I think they have a red and a blue. If that.
It's basically like a thin foam core. I actually worked in a print shop for a little while.
Yeah. So, so Tom made these blanks for people to draw on, and you can even see that it's actually 2 pieces of substrate glued together, because this thick a stock just doesn't
exist. I mean, it exists, but it's not a common item that they carry by any means.
And even an offset printer can't run 40-point stock.
Yeah.
This is about 40. They can't run that through a printer.
No.
It's too rigid.
Yeah, you'd have to have a huge flatbread and
then I asked them, I keep showing them this Super 7 card.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do they do this? And they all say, that's done in China. I don't know. They just whatever they do there. It's like in this country,
no one wants to.
So what they can do is print on the front and back on 20-point stock, and then they laminate them together.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an option. So then when we have something like this, we are left with having to round the corners ourselves.
Right.
And so on eBay, you can get $10 to $15. You can get a corner rounder. This is not a corner rounder. I'll tell you what this is in a second. And then you just boom, 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 boom. You can round all the corners. It's horrible on your hand. You're going to get carpal tunnel. It's fucking terrible. You don't want to do that. Unless you're only doing a few. If you're doing a lot, then literally with shipping from China, I think this was $60.
Oh, okay.
$60 to $80 for this press, and you put it in,
and it rounds the corner.
It's fantastic. Saves so it's just doop and wonderful.
Could you even do 2 at a time with that, or would it be worth?
I have. I've done 4 or 5 at a time. It just it makes
clean.
A mess.
Yeah, it's not as clean.
It's okay. It's not as good. You can't tell the difference if I said this is a 1 at a time and this is a 5 at a time. But the little corners will go down into the little hole if you only cut 1. If you cut 5, and then you have to sweep. So you have to figure out which of those 2 you like. And then what this is a hole punch.
Right. Yep.
For the top. They call this a sombrero cut because it looks like a sombrero. Maybe that's not politically correct. I don't know.
There's another name to it, and I can't for the life of me think what people call it.
And what I like about this one is you can adjust the depth.
Oh, that is nice.
And there's some where you can't adjust the depth, and then you're stuck.
Yeah.
If you didn't work it into your art, and you want it to be down here, you're hosed. Yeah. So I'm going to recommend everyone get their.
And how much was that?
$20.
Oh, that's not bad. It's not bad at all.
$15. Not a lot. Not for the amount of work.
Yeah.
That you get.
Are those items things that are available on your site, or is that
No? That's just look on eBay or Amazon. They're all over the place. Crafting places. It's just type in hole puncher or hang card.
Punch, something like that.
Anything. That all works. And then this is the other way that a lot of people package their stuff, which is super simple, is the bag and header card.
Yeah.
Ian says that they're $20.
Oh, okay. That's not bad at all.
Bag and header card. anyone can do it.
Yeah.
For our purposes, for a convention, it's kind of horrible, right? Because I can't do anything with it.
Right.
For the collector, for a lot of collectors that open them, it means you have the ability to pull the staples out,
Right.
not ruin your package. You can always restaple it. And printing those is simple. Even got print, if you have smaller pieces, in the past they have a business card. It's a double-sided business card.
Right.
And I had little like suckle figures, and we just printed 1,000 for $20, and you just put it in the bag. That's it. But I do recommend this crazy stapler right here.
Yeah.
Because with a regular stapler, you can't
get deep enough on a lot of them.
You can only get as deep as this crevice here, and this has a little thing there, and you can adjust it. What else can we talk about?
For all those zine makers out there, they know that well.
Yes. There are some people who box their toys.
Yeah.
Healy has these little boxes that he made that are foil printed and die cut. This was a Mark Ultra box. Looks very homemade, like template printed on his home computer, and then and the internet's great. There's templates for everything out there. And then when we are shipping product and storing it, we're always putting them in these polypropylene bags. Polypropylene feels kind of like a Ziploc sandwich bag, that kind of material. What we've found is if you use a polyethylene bag, like a comic, comic bag, which is this this harder stuff, what happens is when it's rubbing on the blister, it's
scratching it.
Scratching it.
Yeah, I can see that.
So poo on scratching. What else? Other things we've been experimenting with is trying to figure out how to heat seal blisters to cards.
Oh.
And there's a company out here called Chad Pack that like makes and sells these machines for heat sealing. And it turns out that when you heat seal something, and that once you know it, like you'll start to feel it. When you go to the store, if you feel like a Star Wars figure, right? There's a clear coat. There's like the CMYK printing, and then there is either a spot on a certain spot or over the whole thing, another coat of glue.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it gives it sort of a pebbly texture.
Yep.
And so what I didn't realize is that they make a die, and they heat it up, and they push it against, and it activates the glue, and that's how you get that nice, Chinese-made glue that you would get on a Super 7 figure or a vintage Star Wars figure, is that heat sealing process. Unfortunately, in the United States, most heat sealing is done from behind.
Oh, okay.
And so that means they're heating it up from behind. So someone with 40 point
stock. You can even see it on some of the old Star Wars packets. You
see a big, like heat marks. And sometimes that's the stuff in China though is a lot of times is heated from the front. Right. And the stuff that's heated from the front looks so much better.
Yeah.
But you can't heat up 40 point stock.
Oh, okay.
And so a lot of the heat sealing equipment in this country is like the maximum is like 20 point, which is it's not good for
it's dollar store figure stock.
It's not good for collectors. So this is an example. This is the figure we made with the Sucklord probably 10 years ago. And that's just, you can see that kind of like speckled pattern. Inside and that is from the heat sealer that's coming from the front. And I don't know, it's just the expense to do it. You have to buy the die.
Yeah.
And then I did the math, and then it's just cheaper to glue it ourselves. It's just, I don't know.
So let's say I I get hit by a car of money tomorrow and I had, umpteen $1,000 behind me,
Mhm.
would you be the person that would come to that I could say, hey, make this figure, I want this, this, and this? Do you still have those ties from your old job kind of deal, or?
I still know factories in China. I don't really. I've managed a few projects, and
I mean, like that last Sucklord one, it had a
mhm,
vacuumed backing on it. It had, for
mhm.
keeping the thing in place. And so that's a lot of different steps for that.
I know enough people I could refer you to
Yeah.
handle that. Um, what I find with small jobs in China is that you're not very important.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that.
So you're making 1,000 figures,
Yeah.
but an order for 1,000,000 rubber ducks came in,
Yeah.
or flip flops or whatever, and it's like your deadline doesn't mean shit,
Yeah.
right?
So you'll
Um,
have your figure in 4 years.
eh, and what I found is the projects are only as good as what you put into it.
Mhm.
If you're supervising, if you're on them, if you're asking for samples,
Right.
anytime I have just said, "Oh yeah, great, okay," and then the stuff shows up, and you're like,
Yeah.
that's not what I asked for." And even with these, we had two colorways, and if you can't, I don't have the other colorway here, but one was dark gray and blue, and this was like a metallic silver,
Right.
and except for the color of the lightsaber, like you have them next to each other, you can tell the difference.
Right.
But if I show you this one and show you the other one,
You wouldn't be. Yeah.
you wouldn't be aware that there was two colorways of this, and that stems from that problem. Like
Yeah.
you give them a Pantone color, and unless you have the time to request a sample, make sure they send it and approve it, and then each of those things delays, and every time there's a change, it delays.
Yeah.
And let's just say I'm very happy to be working with people locally who we speak a common language, and um, it it's just something. It's just like anything else. Like
Yeah.
good communication works,
Right.
and you know, if I spoke Chinese, if I spoke Mandarin, like
Yeah, but
that'd be amazing.
I think even with that, I think you're probably a lot more fortunate being in the stage of things you're in, as opposed to having to be the person that has to deal with that constantly. Because
Right. I
that's a
mean,
whole nother person and doing a whole nother job. Basically, that's their only job, is doing that constant nitpicking to keep those things going.
and people with large projects hire people to you know to who do QC in
Right.
China, or they go to China to visit. If
Right.
it's imagine you have $1 million project, you get on a plane and you go
Yeah,
approve it,
exactly.
right? Um, and this is kind of just small potatoes, and you. And then I've had a lot of situations where the person I was dealing with in China just you know people I would refer a lot of business to,
Yeah.
people I thought that I was very friendly with, and just things go bad, and then you
Yeah.
realize that they claim they own a factory, but they don't,
Yeah.
and they're just contracting with someone else,
Right.
right? And then you go to this other factory's website, and then you see all of your prototypes on the shelf of
Yeah.
this other company,
Yeah.
and then it's always as good as the relationship is,
Yeah.
right? And then those two people get into a fight, and then you're asked out,
Yeah.
right? Because this guy can't fix your problem and you paid for it.
Right.
And this person doesn't care. They say talk to him.
Yeah.
So, accountability is difficult. I
Yeah.
I, I generally refer people to contractors,
Yeah.
because the contractor is doing a lot of business with the factory. The
Mhm.
factory doesn't want to make this person mad because they're bringing them a lot of business.
Right.
And if I send someone who has never done a project directly to a factory,
Yeah.
it's
That's
not necessarily a recipe for disaster, but it could go bad.
right.
Um, I mean, I had some issues ordering stickers, on Alibaba. Like,
Yeah.
I said, they, I kept saying, I want I want a thick cardboard back with a thin sticker.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. And then they said I approved it. And what showed up was like this thick sticker on this back. And then you're like, you're trying to peel it at the wrong side. And you're just destroying it because it's so counterintuitive, like that you would have a thick sticker on a thin piece of paper. Like, no one wants a thick sticker. It's like a baseball card thick sticker. Like, it's like, this makes no sense. Like, whatever. Didn't go well. So, like those are the psychedelic stickers that are behind me there. And then Morgan just created a hang tag that just made it part of the story. It's like, you know, get your hands on these thick stickers, you know, and no one's complaining. And most people probably don't even open the package, but
you planned it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's so your question was, so I don't make things for other people.
Right.
I think to answer your earlier question is people come to me with projects. The only projects I go to someone else with is if I'm going to go to some artist who's not making toys in the scene. So when I approach Ron English and say, hey, can I turn your large vinyl figures into 3 3/4 inch action figures?
Yeah.
So it's the things that we are actively pursuing are taking an artist who would never work in this medium,
right,
and bring them into the medium. And so we have projects coming up this year with Alex Gross, who's a painter. We make, you know, the large resin figures for Mike Egan. We're gonna also make 3 3/4 inch figures for him, carded figures. Couple of things in the works, and every once in a while, you know, someone approaches me and says, hey, I want to make a figure, and it's like, great. But what happens, because I don't do any of the work myself,
right,
because
you're not a sculptor, you're not a, you know,
you know, I'm not even talking about painting or casting,
right.
or, you know, I can't even intelligently talk about, you know, that kind of stuff. And the problem is, if I'm paying a sculptor and paying someone to cast and paying someone to paint and paying someone to design a card, printing,
right,
and then we're assembling in-house, it ends up being $100 figure.
Yeah.
And when there's an artist who's doing it themselves, there are very few artists that can do everything themselves.
Right.
Right. Most artists are farming out something.
Mm-hmm.
Either they can't sculpt, or they can kit bash, or they don't do graphic design, but they can do, you know, there's always something that they, and there are some artists that are people who've been criticized, you know, because they say like, oh, this person doesn't even cast their own figures. You know, for me, I was like, this person's a conceptual artist. Their work is better than yours. Shut up. Like, you know, my example is, do you ever see Jeff Koons on top of a 20-foot tall balloon dog with a blowtorch, you know?
Right, exactly.
Doesn't matter. You know, he signs his name to it. He's the one that says it's okay. Like, you know,
it's his vision still behind it.
Yeah, when a filmmaker makes a movie, like there's 6,000 people who worked on the movie, and it still says, you know, George Lucas film. Like,
yeah.
You know, I don't know. So, but another thing I will recommend is this. And this, it doesn't have to be satin necessarily.
Right.
This clear enamel spray, but it does a couple things. And not everyone does it. I mean, I think there's some people that don't even prime their resin, right? They just paint their resin. Long term, it's probably better that you're priming, and then painting, and then sealing. And the sealing gives you, does Healy seal his stuff? I don't know. But I mean, if you look at like the quality there, when you look at this and it looks like it came from the store, it's covering up, not covering up, but it's, I'm going to say covering up. It's covering up the brush strokes.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
And it's taking a lot of that, it's kind of, I would say, bringing it all together. And that makes it, at the end of the day, looking like a toy. Because if you have the raw resin here, and if you have this painted here, or two different quality of paints, when you spray it and make it all one,
Yeah.
It really does. And it makes, I mean, just going to go back to the Healy toy here because
he does a good job at his stuff. He really does.
And I mean, so much so that like he will cast separate parts
Yeah.
in an effort to not have to paint things or to make painting cleaner.
Right.
Like he'll put his seam
at the waist,
wherever he's going to glue,
right?
So that it's not a brush stroke separating it.
Right.
It's like this is this color and this is this color, and I glued it together, and then his line is perfect.
Yeah.
So if I'm not describing this correctly, don't
No,
send
no,
me mail. I don't want to hear about it.
I know exactly. I know exactly what you're saying. I was just finished this guy up. This is a stole.
Look at that. That's for Spanky's show.
Well, I missed out on it. I actually interviewed him. I got to finish that interview up really quick. But that's the one thing left on it is for me to clear coat it. So.
Nice. And some people use gloss coat. I don't particularly care for small glossy things. I think the glare takes away from the detail.
I think the only thing I would do that for is if I was going more for like a porcelain look.
Definitely. We, in an effort to save time in painting, sometimes if appropriate, we will have something cast in the color, let's say the main body color.
Right.
So casting a Darth Vader in black and then painting on the whatever other details is easier to do. We've had some bad experience with white though, because white resin will turn yellow over time.
Oh, okay.
And so there's one figure that we did that shall remain nameless, but they're all starting to turn yellow. There's two that I can think of, and it's making them kind of look kind of vintage. So it's kind of cool, and they're actually yellowing unevenly.
Oh, okay. Well, like the old Kenner toys all did that.
That's what I mean. It's like the arms are getting kind of yellow, but this is staying kind of white over here. It's kind of interesting. So we've been
Hoth Trooper look going on.
Indeed. So the Ron English figures have been challenging because the large vinyl Ron English figures have matte and gloss mixtures.
Right.
And especially the Darth Vader, it's like a matte body, but then there's black gloss details. And so trying to figure out like, because once you spray this on it, it's all matte, and you've taken your gloss away. So have we painted on top of this? No. So it's really hard to get in small figures a matte and gloss combination without finding. You really have to test it, like painting, spraying, and then doing the last gloss.
Or like like Healy and do separate parts, then glue them together.
Which, most artists would cast this in one piece.
Yeah.
Because that's more expedient.
Right.
No. Okay, so he's saying that the arms here would catch bubbles.
Yeah.
But if the arms were down at the side, we'd have it cast in one piece.
Yeah.
But this looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just that's a lot of dedication and work to make 5 molds rather than one. So, and then I guess the last thing I'll talk to you about before we'll see whether we have questions here is we are going to start to carry cases from Gonk Droid.
Oh, okay.
And Gonk Toys, rather.
Right.
He goes by Gonk Droid also. And I don't have an appropriate figure to fit in here, but you get the idea.
And that's the standard Star Wars size, or he has several?
He does have several. What did I do with those? He's got this. We'll have the standard Star Wars size in time for March DKE-CON.
Okay.
Then we will have Turtles and He-Man probably by San Diego. And then I've sent him specs for
Nice.
For Sucklord size, because
Okay.
Sucklord size, standard Star Wars size GI Joe is 6x9.
Right.
Most people are working in 6x9.
Yeah.
Sucklord started in 6.5 by 8.5,
And
and
just
has
went with it.
remained 6.5 by 8.5. And I made a case in China, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. We called it the Suck case.
Yeah.
And instead of having these guides at the top, it had really tall guides with
Okay.
a lot of play, because these were hand cut.
Right.
So if it goes a quarter inch this way, I made it so a one size fits all.
Right. Right.
The cost to make them and ship them here was just too great, and I would take pre-orders. I'd have to order 100
because you
at a
can't
time.
necessarily like fold those into each other either. That's like bulk space, and
Yeah, not ideal. So, I'd get 30 or 40 orders, and then I'd place the order for 100, and sometimes they'd sell out real fast. Sometimes they take forever. And so now we're just gonna partner with Gunk Toys and offer ultimately what I hope will be his complete line, and hopefully he will make the psychedelic size cases also to accommodate
the randomness that is Sucklord.
Yeah, because his cases are a little more expensive. I think they're $25.
Yeah.
But the quality, because the pieces, let's say like this piece is not glued. This is just bent acrylic.
Yeah.
And so the quality
one less thing to break.
Whereas the other ones we used to sell, like this piece was glued, glued, the clip glued, everything glued. And like even this piece is just one bent piece all around.
Yeah, that is,
So the quality of the cases is really up there, except when I drop them and break them. So yeah, always looking for stuff to accommodate collectors. If you go, the problem is if you have a custom size and you go to a framer and want something custom made, it's like $50 to $75.
Yeah.
It's like you have to have something really special to want a custom case made for that.
For sure. So let's wrap this up a little bit, but let's talk about the DKE-CON coming up.
March 19th. I should be better prepared, shouldn't I? March 19th through 21st. Does that sound right, Ian? Yes. He says yes. So we'll be streaming right here in the booth. And hopefully this will be the first of a yearly online event. And I think we have like at least 40 exclusives lined up. We'll be here on a Zoom from, I don't even know the hours. So it'll be like noon to 6 and then like 10 to 7 every day, just sitting here doing nothing. No, I mean, we do contests and giveaways and we do interviews, and those interviews we're getting up on YouTube. So, trying to create an event.
Right.
There's some people you just see that are just sitting there like all day. I'm just wondering, like, are you really watching this for like 30 hours?
Well, it's an easy thing to go on in the background while you're painting figures or while you're,
Right. Yeah, I remember texting Killer Bootlegs, and it just looked like he was on. I was like, "Hey, Pete, are you there? Are you there?" And then he texted me. He's like, "Sorry, I went on a run." It's like, "I went on a bike ride." It's like, "What? Oh, you just left it on and went on a bike ride. That makes me feel great." So, I don't know. So it should be fun, and it's interesting how it's just figured out. I mean, if not for the pandemic, one of those unintended benefits, like, I'd rather have no pandemic, but we just realized that the convention is not, like, we're not really hitting all the right people.
Yeah.
And by doing this event ourselves, everyone who
It's
cares
very focused. Yeah.
is, can be a part of it. And that's really going to present a problem for us when it's time to do a live show, because now we've developed this following of people who are used to coming to our site to buy stuff.
Right.
And then what am I going to do? Say, oh, this is San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. Now you have to fly to San Diego and buy a $200 ticket and stay in a hotel in order to buy the stuff?
With 40,000 sweaty other people.
So I'm conflicted.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. And
then
cons, especially the first couple of cons, are just going to be crazy because so many people, a lot of people have gained geekdom over this pandemic because they're sitting home watching movies and reminiscing, and there's the toy collecting market has kind of gone up in this whole pandemic, like eBay stuff and all that. So it'll be interesting to see when cons start up what actually is going to happen.
Yeah, I have no idea. Are people going to I mean, is San Diego going to sell out if it's live, or 100,000 people going to show up in San Diego?
Yeah, I think they will.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's going to be San Diego this year. I don't think.
No. I couldn't see it this year. But
I think we'd be lucky to have Designer Con this year, but I think by next year,
unless we'll turn into mutants from the vaccine, whatever.
There is always that.
Well, this has been fun, man. This has been really good. I'm sure people are learning a little bit more of how to do what they want to do. And I'm glad that you're a friendly enough person to call if they have any questions.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that it's always to my benefit, like ultimately they make something for us, so there's an ulterior motive. But yeah, I mean, I do talk to a lot of people that don't, it's like.
Is there a tutorial kind of section on your website?
There is not.
There's not.
I mean, there are other artists who have done stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube. More of the stuff that I've talked today. I mean, this is the tutorial. This is why I wanted to do it.
All right. Well, it's out there.
Someone has questions. I'm going to tell them, hey, go watch TESTPLUG.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Right? I mean, because I've just told you everything I know. I don't know anything more than what I've just told you.
I'm glad I could squeeze it out of you.
This is the limit of my knowledge. So, yeah, I kind of know just the very end of like packaging and putting it together, because that's what we do here. And quite often, in order to save money, artists who are doing exclusives overseas, if they make me 50 figures,
right,
it would be in a box like this big and right. But if they shipped 50 flat cards and 50 wrapped figures, they can get it all into one box.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Magoob about that, and he was saying that it was nice because the whole Canada nonsense, getting it just across the border even is a little bit of a nonsense, and then obviously with pandemic nonsense stuff.
And especially if he's using the blisters that he's bought from us,
right?
Why would he buy blisters, pay to ship them to Canada, and then ship them back to us? I mean, people have done it.
Right.
We offer. So
good deal. Well, I'll be looking forward to the con coming up in March there, and who knows what will happen towards the end of the year. I live in Seattle, so I'm not too far away. Who knows? Maybe I'll head down that. Get some friends in LA.
Let us know.
All right, sounds good, man.
All right, well, I appreciate you having us.
This was fun, and thanks for watching TESTPLUG.